Good evening, Michelle.
Okay, the meeting is now called to order for the Historic Resources Board. Can we have the roll call, please?
Ernest Franco. Darlene Boyd.
Here.
Scott Friel. Is excused.
Fighting fires. I think that's right.
Yeah.
David Medeiros.
Here.
Shirley Brewer.
Here.
We have a quorum. Thank you.
Okay. We have informal oh yes, that's right. Let's stand and pledge. Ready, pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. All right. We have first on our third on our list, the informal project review. Are there any potential future project applicants that may present their projects for the Historic Resources Board, Planning Commission during this time? Okay. And your name, state your name and.
My name is Eduardo Hernandez, and this is Frank Serber. We're with Posada de San Juan.
Okay.
So the hotel is in the historic district. We are not a historic building, but I know we still have to present a minor project to you guys. We are in the process of changing one of our existing signs. I just want to come and show you guys what we have as the next sign that we're going to do, just to make sure.
Make sure it's okay?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I do have a...
Now, is it on both sides or just one side?
It's going to be single-sided. Can I give you guys this other?
Sure, yes, please.
So that's what we have now.
Is it on the agenda? Oh, this is informal. Yeah. So this is the street sign?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so essentially this is what's going to be to the same width and height of that. It's just a replica I made.
Okay.
Because we did change our logos, so we're rebranding the property.
You're rebranding everything. Okay. You want to see this?
And also on 3rd Street, 317? 319, we have another project that needs attending, and that is a historic building, so I'll let Frank finish.
Okay.
Yeah, all we're going to do, all it is it's the Happy Rooster restaurant.
Okay.
And if you notice the front of it, it's kind of falling apart on the one side. This is a picture I kind of drew on it, but this is the other. That's the other side of the door. When you walk up to the Happy Rooster, that's the right side. This would be the left side. That's the can from the weather.
Back to the microphone so everybody can hear you.
Basically, all I'm going to do is make the left side look like the right side. Take off this rotten plywood.
Oh, okay.
And then redo it just like this, like a one line. I'll do the trim on the bottom with another piece. It'll look just like that picture there when I'm done.
Okay.
And for some reason, when it was done a while back, it wasn't done like that. It was just a piece of plywood over it and painted. And so, and now it's all rotted out at the bottom.
Yeah, okay.
And I was just going to take that off, redo it, and make it look like the right side of the entrance.
Well, I don't think that should be a problem. Just
All right.
make sure the staff gets everything in order.
Sounds good. Thank you, guys.
Yes, no, that sounds very good. I'm glad to see you're upkeeping some of our old buildings.
Yeah, exactly.
I've got a question on the size of the sign, and that's what you're going with, or were you restricted to that particular size?
No, so this is just another sign that we have inside our building, and that's why we're rebranding with this logo.
Oh.
So what I did was I measured the current approved sign, and I asked the guy that's making the sign to do a replica of this. to the dimensions.
To that,
The
about
same
size.
the same size, okay.
Correct.
I was thinking that's a little bit small.
Yeah, no,
You want-
I agree.
Okay.
But it's going to be the exact dimensions, nothing's changing. We're not adding no neon lights or nothing like that, just going
Okay.
to have this rustic feel.
Okay, good. You're taking care of it, Todd, right?
That's
All
right, that's
right,
right.
good.
We're talking about scientific.
That's right. Madam Chair, if I may, Todd Kenny, city staff, I met with these folks and we went over this and figured it'd just be best to just go ahead and present as an informational
Thank
project
you.
review. Just kind of give you an update with because of the significance of it in town. So minor alteration
Yeah.
and we'll just go through the process accordingly.
Thank you, that's very helpful.
All right.
I like knowing about these things.
Let's see, when we met,
Uh-huh.
when we met that one time, I think I handed you the application.
Yes, yeah.
And because of the historic nature of that
Yeah.
change right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just the application that needs to go through,
Okay.
just the sign changes.
So then I'll come into the city hall and take care of that.
Tell them he needs to come back and present the final
Yeah.
here for approval.
Yeah, present the final here.
This isn't the approval. This
Okay.
is, you gotta go fill out that application.
Okay,
And you're gonna put the plan together. So
Okay.
you'll probably have a drawing or something like that.
Okay.
That needs to come back here for formal approval.
okay,
So this is kind of like a heads up
Okay.
to these folks so that they can give you, hey, it looks pretty good. They give you a little bit of indirect guidance.
yes,
Now, you've got to come back if you get all your stuff together, you can come back the next planning commission and then ask them for approval.
Okay.
Then they'll do a resolution, they'll say, yeah, you're good to go, then you can go ahead and put it up.
all right, sounds good.
What
Thank you.
what you got tonight is if we didn't like it, we would have told you.
Okay,
And then you could go back to your architect and redraw.
got you.
But you have no opposition to what you're doing there, so that's a good sign.
All right, good. Thank you, guys. Appreciate
Okay,
it.
thank you. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there anyone else that has an informal project review?
Could we go
Okay.
back, public comment on items?
Public comment, okay. Are there any public comments right now? Anybody have any public comments?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, nobody? Okay. So we're going to approve the affidavit of posting agenda. Anybody want to make a motion for that?
Make a motion, we approve that posting agenda.
Anybody want
I'll say that.
to? Okay. We have a motion and a second to approve the affidavit of posting agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the ayes have it.
Thank you.
Okay. Harvey's Lockup, 27 Monterey Street. We consider a recommendation to the Planning Commission for revocation of conditional use permit.
Why is this one coming to this historic resources board?
I don't know. I asked it.
Because it's not a planning committee, it's a planning commission item. It's not in the historic district. And I don't know that this board will public hearing.
So I brought that up with staff this morning, and Todd can address that.
Yeah, let me just explain. I went ahead and put it on this agenda and the planning commission agenda. Reason being is the building is in our historic inventory. There was talk about a historic review earlier on when the project was first going through the process. So just for full record purposes, I just put it on there. However, after discussing this, and this was direction given to staff from the planning commission, we could just go ahead and take this off the agenda and put it onto and just focus on the planning commission agenda.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do we need to make a motion for that then? No. Okay. Everybody agree? Let's just do that. That sounds good. Okay. Consider amending the city design guidelines to include a chapter on historic downtown streetscapes guidelines.
Okay, Madam Chair, I can just go ahead and
Go right ahead.
give a quick staff report. This item is only on the Historic Resources Board. It didn't make it to the Planning Commission. That was just kind of technical. However, it was discussed at the previous meeting that we table it and we bring it back or re-agendize it. That's what we try to do tonight. Since October 2nd, we did have a sit-down, myself, Madam Chair, and one of the members of our Historic Society. We sat down and went through it. It is before you tonight to basically make a recommendation. We do have it as as a recommendation on the planning commission. And what we can do, if you like what you see, because at the previous planning commission, it was discussed like where the red marks, where the notes and that kind of stuff. And in your packet, it is in there. You should have that. And if there's no other comments, or if there's anything you'd like to see changed between now and the next planning commission, which would be in December, we can go ahead and pull those in and be ready to present that to the planning commission as an item.
Okay.
I'd like to make a comment.
Okay.
On roof lines. The mechanical equipment is probably going to be seen, but if you painted the color of the roof or something, some other color background, it'll be less noticeable. So my thought would be to make sure that these get painted, so you don't have a bunch of stainless steel or galvanized steel sticking up in the air, visible from the street.
Okay, which item is that?
Oh, that's line 100, no, line 99 on page 3.
Line 99 on page 3. Okay. So we're just going to
I'm sorry, my voice is going out here. Is that better?
That's better, thank you.
Okay, but the comment I made was that the mechanical equipment on the roofs is so often seen as galvanized steel. But if it was painted and also put in as inconspicuous as possible, you would probably reduce the impact of the visual of having the great big steel tube sticking out of the roof. So my comment would be to have include something to the effect that they should all be painted to match the roof or the background.
Okay. Any other comments or suggestions? Okay. So, anybody else? No. Okay. Did you get that? All right.
So paint, let's see.
Paint mechanical equipment.
Paint mechanical.
So you already have it inconspicuous, but painting it, the background color or the roof color, you wouldn't see it sticking
Like
out.
if it's in front of a wall, paint it the wall color. If it's
Kind of matching it.
Yeah, if it's on the roof. Or
Reduce the impact, visual impact.
yes, to minimize the visual impact as much as possible.
Mechanical equipment to be painted accordingly, so that way it matches the wall and or design of the building
Or
Or roof.
or roof.
to reduce the visual impact, whatever it takes.
Yeah, whatever it takes to minimize the visual impact. Okay.
Okay, sounds good. We could plug that in and be ready to present back to you with those findings.
Okay. Thank
Or
you.
that change.
That was helpful. Okay, so do we need to make a motion now to move ahead with this for the next meeting? It's on the action item.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I would staff be directed to prepare the final copy of the proposed amendments for action at the next meeting.
Okay. Anybody second that? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we will bring this to the next meeting. Huh? Are there any public comments on this at this time? Okay,
I have one, Trish.
come on up.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, I missed that one. Andy Bear.
Hi, I'm Vandy Bear. I was on the planning commission for 10 years and worked with David and Ernest, and we worked on this together. But with your recent input, I think it's really a much better product because we've been consistent in naming the district to its real name as it is on the National Registry, so it's no longer the Downtown Historic District. We're calling it 3rd Street Historic District, and we've got the exact, what do you call that? 3rd Street between 406 3rd.
Oh, yeah, perimeters.
Right, the primitives. And in addition to that, we've included the map. And I think with Ernest, with that comment, that'll make it really even stronger. So I hope that we did approve it for the HRB back in 2016. I hope that will have, I guess we have to reapprove it.
Mm-hmm.
Reapprove it at historic and at planning, so that we
I was
can get it
making
on
a
the books.
comment too, my understanding. You got a resolution here. I suggest that we change it to include the statement, the attached amendment to the resolution. So that you don't have a single piece of paper wondering what it is. You pick the resolution and the amended version is attached to it.
Okay.
Okay. And that will be brought up at the next meeting because of the planning commission.
I keep looking, looking through this, I'm thinking of the half barrels. I like the half barrels and using barrels for trash and things like that. But are we restricting everything to half barrels and
I think these are guidelines.
just guidelines?
Yeah.
You think that's gonna?
Yeah, I think they're still guidelines.
I'd like to keep it a little open to make sure that we don't forget about anything else that might be
I
pertinent
think we
to our
always try to
community.
be
Yeah,
open to that.
yeah.
And we still be the deciding body.
That's the only thing I.
And the
Yeah.
intent was, because, while I was on planning and HRB, we had 3 different city managers. I just think it's just kind of a guide for the city managers, because they kind of come and go, but we're always going to be here, and we like to maintain the historic ambiance of the downtown, the historic part of the downtown. So it's just a little preemptive rather than reactive.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
thank you. Okay. Discussion items, okay, 5A, proposed restaurant in the historic district at 404 3rd Street, an expansion of an existing residential unit at 406 3rd Street. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, Madam Chair, members of the Commission, Todd Kennedy, City Staff here. This item, since an application was turned in, we discussed this preliminarily last week when the agenda was being crafted. We figured it'd be a good idea to place this as a discussion item at this time to hear HRB feedback for this applicant. Since it's in the downtown historic district and the sensitivity that goes along with it. I wanted to present as an introductory item now that we have an application on file with them. And it's a minor alteration. Staff determined that this to be a minor alteration because all the work that they're proposing is internal. 404 and 406 3rd Street. Both are 2 buildings located on the same parcel. The 404 address, that is proposed to be a bistro, Vietnamese bistro.
Excuse me, which one is that?
That's the little green one.
Yeah, well,
No, one of them was the nail shop, and the other one was the photography shop or something.
probably not those buildings, sir, if I remember.
That's the pepper tree. You're thinking of the pepper tree. It's
Yeah.
the galvanized building, and then the one next to it used to be Zen Gallery. It's a little green one with the white pillars in front.
This time, okay.
Yeah, right next door. Both buildings are right next door. And it's 2 buildings on the same parcel, owned under the same ownership. And so 404 3rd Street, that's the proposed bistro, going from office/retail to bistro. Bistro is considered a restaurant or cafe, permitted by right in the mixed-use district. 406 3rd Street is the galvanized tin building. It says antiques, has the sign up top. The proposed scope of work in there is to expand an existing residential unit to the downstairs area of that area in the back. The work will all be in the back, and there'll be living space. It'll be bedrooms, a bathroom, and then living space to accommodate the family. I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce Ann Nguyen, who is in our audience right now. She and I have been working extensively. She's been working with myself and our building staff. And I'd like her to introduce herself to the board and use the board to introduce yourselves to her. And with the information that was provided in your packets, ask her any questions or just to give some information about the project.
Come on forward.
So,
Nguyen.
come on up.
Very nice to meet you.
Hi everyone, my name is Ann Lind and I'm the owner of 406 3rd Street.
Okay. And so you want a restaurant in the little green building, right?
Yes, it's just a small Vietnamese bistro that we hope to get together.
And then you're going to live in the back part of the galvanized building, is that correct?
Yes, the proposed plan is to add or to take about 600 square feet to turn that into a 2-bedroom to accommodate our family.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Is there any questions from that?
I'd like to welcome you. We're really glad to have you. So you're looking at on the 404 to enlarge the living space.
The 404 is to convert or to turn that into a small bistro.
Thank you. So
Yes.
406, you're looking to expand the living quarters to accommodate your family?
Yes, just the small portion in the back of the building.
Is this
Everything from the front, it's going to be maintained as is for commercial purpose.
Okay. To be determined at some point in the future.
You don't know the commercial purpose at this point, is what she's asking.
We're hoping to have a boutique up front.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, that would be nice, very nice.
Yes.
And we're looking forward to a restaurant.
Do you, I was just going to ask, do you have any professional help other than the city helping you with permits and things like that? Or
No,
you don't?
at this point, it's I started this project long ago, and there were some changes at the city level, and so that was on hold for a while. And now, for the past couple of months, Todd and Tim has been assisting me in putting everything together. Yes.
Yeah. Well, looking to the future, it was 2 buildings that are separate from each other on one parcel.
Yes.
And if you're looking to the future, I was thinking if that was my property, maybe you could sell half of it, let's say one business versus the other. And now when you put infrastructure in the back, you're kind of tying those two, that one parcel all together. You couldn't split it apart, but I guess you could, But
the truthful part is that my husband and I, a few years ago, visited this town, and we loved to retire here. We loved the city, we loved the people that we talked to, and we loved the weather here. Mm-hmm. And that was basically the idea behind that. After a few years, things hasn't changed, or as far as our decision, we're just hope to call it home here at some point in the near future. But at the same time, we have a big family, and we definitely can't live here and commute up north. And so that's where the idea of having, yes, and that also to be able to work in the city and provide, hopefully, employment. And I think it is value added to the entire city and to ourselves, and that's really deeply our hope.
Mm-hmm. Well, we like win-win situations like that. That's great. Yeah. So in any case, anybody else have any questions, concerns?
Madam Chair, if I may, just stepping in, these plans that you see before you in your packets, they have been submitted to Building and Fire. Comments are expected to be back probably mid this week. Those responses will be sent right to Ann right away, so she can incorporate those in her plans. So it's anticipated this project will be coming back to you for an action item. And because a draft resolution has already been created, and so it'll be in front of this board again for an actual action item.
Okay, that's great. We'll look forward to it. Okay, thank you for choosing our city.
Yes, thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, the next thing we are looking at. Any public comment on this item? Okay, I don't see any. City processes for 3rd Street Historic District projects to manage future projects.
Let's see, Madam Chair, members of the commission, let me thumb over that item real quick here. I'm just using a hard copy right now. Let me see if I can find that. Madam Chair, if I can respond to that as I'm thumbing, I think this was discussed in response to emails that I received. Let's see where it go. Let's see. Give me just a second. Sorry about this. Let me just find my location.
That's fine. We'll let you find it.
Let's see. I think. Oh, you got it? Okay. Thank you so much, Deb. I appreciate it. Okay. Yes, this item is being moved forward in order to discuss city processes related to the 3rd Street Historic District. Madam Chair, you and I had a conversation about this. There was concern raised about projects and proposals being, being moved forward in the downtown district. Staff has been involved with several projects over the past several months, and also this is just to discuss, possibly with input, to clarify the city process. There's no discussion on this, but I wanted to present to you tonight a planning process flow chart that staff has been working on kind of off and on about how to manage projects and execute them through the process. This can be applied not only in the downtown district but citywide, going ahead and moving forward through that. Anyway, that pretty much concludes my briefing at this point. I can answer or respond to any comments or questions you may have at this time.
Okay. Let's see, this seems very straightforward. Are there any questions or discussion?
I saw the process, the flow chart.
Yes.
Yeah, that's good.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. And keep in mind, folks, this might be presented back to you. This can be done as well as our development flow chart that we've been creating that we present to you every meeting. And this could be just something as we fine tune it and get it all finalized. This could be in a future meeting. And it can be, so this might be changing as time goes on. And
so it's a work in progress.
Yeah, work in progress. I mean, I'm glad you like the draft, but probably more work needs to be put into it.
Yeah. Sounds good. That sounds good. Okay. Did you have any? All right. Any public comments? I do not see any. So let's move on to process for placement of stop signs and traffic calming measures. Okay. Let's go to that.
Okay, Madam Chair, if I may, this was brought to your attention, or the board's attention in response, and it probably should be on the Planning Commission, but for the sake of discussion items, we can just go ahead and knock it out right now. There's been some recent discussion, it sounds like, that the Planning Commission or Planning Commission HRB could review or should review information when new signs or new stop signs, traffic calming measures are being proposed. Maybe I think right now is just to gather more information in response to that request. Is it necessary, or does the Planning Commission wish to have that put on? So, because it's been my experience, and Deb, definitely correct me if I'm wrong on this, but it's been my experience that in my other jurisdictions that we worked in, if it's related to a specific land use project, whether it be new development or whatever the case may be, if stop signs or traffic calming measures are put in place, that's when Planning Commission would take a look. But in terms of streets, in terms of studies like transportation studies or placement where stop signs can go, that is where it gets reviewed and finalized by the city engineer, moved to the city manager. City manager makes the call, and then it goes to city council. So I just wanted to say, is this something that we want to consider in a future, as a future action item to amend our code, or is this something you want to hear more about? I guess that's pretty much my question at this point.
Well, the reason I brought this item up is because in the past, I do know that when with the former city manager, he was going to put in a one-way street, and then he wanted to put in like 14 to 16 other signs to redirect traffic and all that kind of stuff. And it was going to impact the aesthetics of the historic district. Mm-hmm. And that did come before at least the Planning Commission. I don't remember it coming before the HRB, but it could have. But I do remember having this discussion with him, and we rejected his idea because, like I said, it was 14 signs or something to redirect traffic so we could have a one-way street to gain 4 parking spaces or something. And so I assumed because of that, and I may have assumed it incorrectly, that we have say in it because it is, again, it has to do with signage, and especially when we're talking about the historic district, so. But I know that these other signs weren't in the historic district necessarily, but because it was dealing with signage and traffic flow and things like that, I thought that we'd have some say in that. I would like to visit it as a possibility. I do know that in other cities, sometimes planning commission does handle these kind of things. So maybe, do you have any comments that you would like to make?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Deb.
Okay, so in this city, there is an ordinance, it is attached, and it says that the city council shall by resolution designate the character of official warning and direction signs. So there's no real authority unless, like Todd said, if it was purely a land use matter related to a project, traffic or parking, it would come to you. But if it's just original, it goes to the city council. So if you were to change that, you would ask the city council either that you'd like to give directions on things and maybe they could send them down before they brought them back up, or you'd ask the city council to change this ordinance so that the review went to the planning commission first and then city council. And I do know that project you're talking about with the signs on 3rd Street.
Right.
And I do remember that there was an impact on the historic district, and it was also kind of a big project that was controversial. And that's a lot of times when the city council likes to send things back to the planning commission, maybe air it with the public and hear what the public has to say and see if there's a better idea as far as, the land use of the area. But I would say for every traffic sign, you probably don't want to have original jurisdiction. And also there's a process that Todd missed, that the city engineer does usually decide where the traffic signs go, but there's a process you have to go through with the state to go through some kind of state traffic laws, and you generally do a traffic study. So there is usually some airing, of what's going to happen through the engineer side that wouldn't necessarily fall to the planning commission.
There's a set of standards called warrants that they have to meet to put in a sign or striping or whatever. But the word is warrants.
Warrants?
Warrants.
Right. Thank you. Okay. Thank you very much for that.
One thing you might want to do is, if it came to that, you could ask, rather than change the ordinances, ask the council to make a policy that, a list of kind of stuff you want to see, make it a policy of your council to send stuff for review. Because if it starts with them and they take denial action, there's no local appeal. You have to go to court. It comes down here, it gets aired, so the attorney said, bring all those messes up, and then when it goes back to the council, they've got a lot more to work with.
Okay.
To make a better decision.
Okay, that sounds like a
I've
better.
always felt that the planning commission is where all the laundry should be done. When you send something up, I only want to see, thanks guys, and sign it.
Right.
There shouldn't be discussion. If they have to discuss it, we haven't done our job.
Yes.
So
I agree with that.
We get the people to come out here, we get them to comment, and we say, hey, based on this, and these findings, we recommend that you sign it. Thanks guys.
We ask that you send this to the council. As a request.
But who calls for that decision to be made to get planning commission or the historical review board involved? I mean,
Council, you just said this.
well, I know that, but I'm just thinking, what drives that? They maybe they're not even thinking about it.
Okay.
And what drives it? This is when we talk about certain projects, if in any project, our guide here is to say, well, does this require planning commission? Does this require whatever? Is there any steps that they're taking or process to make sure that we're not overlooked?
Again, we pass a resolution, the HRB, the council. When you get these kind of items, we appreciate the historical district, send them down to us for review. And if they do or they don't, if they don't make this policy, and that way you don't have to go change an ordinance.
Right.
You just have a
It's not
resolution.
a final say.
Yeah.
It's just that we're offering to do the laundry down here, so that people have a better chance,
And then you can do that with a resolution to change policy. Okay. Thank you. That's what we would like to ask the council.
I have a public
Okay.
Comment?
Okay.
Two. Okay.
Which one would you like to go for?
Okay, Jolene Cozio.
Okay, thank you.
Jolene Cosio, 181 Lang Street. If I may ask council, did the city council see all 4 of the, I think there's just 4 of the newest stop signs before they went out? Because I don't remember it
I
going
don't
before
know the
council.
answer to that. I would have to direct it to the city manager.
Okay, but what you just read says that they should.
Yes.
Let's take them all down. Stop signs do not help slow traffic. It's a well-known fact, and I'm surprised any engineer approved the 4 new stop signs we have, especially the 2 brand new ones right by the apartments. There is not even a stop sign for the people coming out of the apartments. So now they apparently have the right of way. And everybody else has to stop where there's no street, no intersection, right there, because there's a driveway coming out of the apartments. We have to stop. They don't have to stop. They don't have a stop sign. And I think if there was a problem with the view coming out of those apartments, then we should paint the curb red so that nobody can park in the space on either side of that driveway, and give them a stop sign so they have to look twice before they come out. Because stopping at that stop sign is really inconvenient for most of us residents who don't live in the apartments. So I'm opposed to that one, and the other 2 were probably a good idea to try to slow down traffic, but they're not working. People just run them. And so I really think that these stop signs do need further review.
On the agenda, it says process for placement of stop signs. And so, Todd, you were supposed to describe the process of how stop signs get placed.
And it was the council said how it was being done, and
yeah, this agenda item isn't to talk about a specific stop sign.
Okay, I'm sorry, I brought up specific stop signs.
That's not this agenda.
Okay, sorry.
Van Vicky Bear.
Hi, Van Vicky Bear, 5 Donner Street. I'm glad this item came up because I think it really belongs in the 3rd Street Historic District streetscape guidelines. We do have sidewalks, but we really don't discuss speed bumps, traffic calming measures, or parking. So I think those perhaps should be included in this as well. What do you think?
Included in what? In the
In
process?
the historic district streetscape guidelines that we discussed earlier this evening.
I think that's a good idea, because it is something that we've done in the past already.
I'll add that.
Thank you. Thank you, Fonda. Okay.
But I think that in discussions we should have sooner or later on the traffic calming devices, traffic.
Yeah, there's a lot of other ways to calm traffic.
Like you said, speeding in
Yeah, well, stop signs don't do it. And was a traffic survey even done?
So is the process, did you discuss the process?
I gave an overview of the process and just asked the question, like, why we're discussing it tonight.
Okay.
And in the packet, in the packet was given out chapters of the code for signs and an assignment of duties.
Okay.
And then plans.
And then what entity is responsible for traffic? City engineer,
Yes.
city manager, city council, and where the scope of historic society and planning commission starts and ends? Did you go through that?
Just focus on traffic and signs. That's all.
So if the scope of historic society and planning commission want to start getting into traffic and speed bumps and stop signs, you have to get on the agenda for the council to figure out if you want to, if they approve of you guys expanding your scope into traffic. Now, city attorney, do you have any experience with the scope of the planning commission versus as it relates to traffic?
So we did discuss this before you came into the door, and we did discuss that if the last time that this project was before the planning commission, it had a historic district aspect, It also had a controversial aspect, and that was why it was brought to the Planning Commission to pretty much air the issue at the Planning Commission level so that the City Council had an easier decision.
And
When was the last time this was brought, or what was it?
I believe it was 3rd Street, there was, in front of the Adobe there was,
yeah, for the end.
So that's a historic area, right?
yes.
Okay.
Can I just clarify something? I'm here tonight as a former member of the Planning Commission, HRB, not as Historical Society. It's really hard to distinguish which hat one is wearing because we all wear so many, but I'm not representing Historical Society tonight with this issue.
And the attorney suggested that we have asked City Council to consider a resolution policy to have us take care of this kind of laundry work before it goes to them. Because it actually, do you want to go ahead with your explanation?
Take care of what laundry work?
Right now, if something comes up, it goes to the council, and the council denies something, there's no appeal locally, you have to go to court. If certain items come to the Planning Commission, they can be basically do the laundry here, hear all the public comments, good, bad, or indifferent. Then we can send a resolution to the council saying, hey, we've reviewed all of this and we recommend this. Then the council has the final say on it. But rather than having the council do all the laundry work, it's always been my feeling that laundry should be done here.
Laundry on traffic?
On anything.
On traffic and stop signs?
And
like traffic
said,
control?
that,
So city attorney, does planning commission
the last one was
traditionally?
so controversial, city manager, that, like I said, 14 signs in the historic district was just more than the council commission, more than both the HRB and the commission wanted to deal with. And that went down.
So that's signs in the historical district.
So what was presented is that the Planning Commission could ask the City Council for direction on this. That if the City Council wanted to give jurisdiction to the Planning Commission, they could.
To vet traffic issues.
Which are controversial, perhaps, or affect many blocks. That was the reason that the project was before them before.
So
it was very controversial.
So in other jurisdictions, so you both have been in other jurisdictions. How involved is a planning commission in traffic?
So that was what Todd started out with, and he is accurate that the Planning Commission typically would not review a traffic plan, a speed limit plan, speed bumps alone. They would review it in the context of
the general.
If there was historical aspects, if there was controversial aspects, the City Council might ask them, or staff might say, maybe you should hear it first because there's this. The last time it impacted, the argument was that it impacted on one of the Adobes, which was the oldest building on town. So the Planning Commission did hear it. So I think it really comes back to the City Council and whether they want to give that authority to the Planning Commission, and whether they want to design a policy where controversial issues or historical
and
issues go to
determines
them.
what's controversial and what's not?
So that was brought up, so I'm going to testify now for the Planning Commission, not myself, but it was brought up, and it would be staff's call whether it was controversial. And then Ms. G. said, perhaps we should put it in the design guidelines to draw the line as to whether it impacts on historical preservation or not.
And that would be considered controversial.
I would just repeat what Ms. G. said.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Well, the question I'm asking is, we are discussing the process. So I would be asking the city staff, what is it in the process do you want the Planning Commission or the HRB, the board, help you with this?
So
did we cross that line? I thought that's what we were answering the question. We're discussing the process, and we were just asking, well, if anything, we'll leave that up. Basically, policy would be basically you leave it up to the city council should they need our help to review anything. That's it. So, so that's what we're saying about the process. I mean, you brought it up. So is there something in the process you feel that you need to discuss further with us that deserves a different answer?
In my opinion, traffic is with the city engineer, the city manager, and the council, period.
Were these signs approved by city council?
Yes.
Okay, so the question is, are we happy with that?
Yes.
Oh,
The city council's happy with it. They were happy with the stop signs out on your road, San Juan Hollister Road. Everybody was super happy with those, and people are very happy with the sign in front of the gardens, including city council. And the whole plan was laid out in an email saying, what would you like to move forward with? And that was approved through email. Okay? So that's the process.
Well,
So there's an email outlining it with a diagram and feedback from city council and approval on that stop sign, and including reverse, vertical, or parking on that street, which we'll get to. So I'd much rather prefer to deal with one body that determines whether to proceed or not proceed. I don't want to go through 3-4 different gates to do this. If it's a historical thing and the signage is limited in the historical district, I get what Vanda's saying, and it's inconsistent with the historical elements of downtown. I agree. That we'll make a call, take it to planning commission, make sure it's in the same tradition, and so on and so forth. But that should be a staff call, and that should be something that Todd can say, hey, we need to get signs that are appropriate. Or cobblestone sidewalks on 3rd Street. That's a planning thing.
okay. Thank you for your opinion. Okay. So let's move on to item 6 here. Planning Commissioner, do you have any comments at this point? Further comments?
We were on 6B, actually.
6.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go on.
I don't think so.
Okay, go on. I'm sorry.
Pardon?
You're right. No, I was moving ahead in my agenda.
6A was Planning Commissioners. Do you have any further comments?
no.
Okay. City Planner, you have any further comments?
No, ma'am.
City Manager, you have any further comments?
Is this still the historical section?
Historic board.
No.
Okay. So I'll move that this meeting is adjourned and we move on to the Planning Commission meeting. Do we want to take a recess? Anybody feel need? No, we're done. Okay. Moving on, okay. Let's get back to the next thing that we're doing. Okay. Can you tell me what time that clock says? I'm sorry. It says, yeah.
6:48. Thank you.
Yeah, 6:48. Okay. Let's call to order the regular Planning Commission meeting. Let's have roll call, please. Yes. Go around.
Ernest Franco. Darlene Boyd.
Here.
Scott Friels is excused. David Maderas.
Here.
Shirley Brewer.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay.
Quorum.
Okay. Do we need to redo the Pledge of Allegiance?
No, we don't.
Thank you.
Agenda's right. Sorry.
Okay, let's open it up for public comment then, please. Are there any public comments right now for the Planning Commission?
No, I don't have any cards.
Okay. Informal project review, any potential and/or future project applicants? present their projects to the commission during an informal project review for the purpose of gaining information and preliminary feedback. Is there anybody that has any? Nobody? Okay. Let's go to the consent agenda. All matters listed under the consent agenda may be enacted by one motion. Is there anything that anybody would like to pull from this agenda? Amen. Okay.
There being no other comments, I move that the consent agenda be approved as listed.
A, B, and C?
Yes.
I'll second it.
Okay. There's been a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda A, B, and C. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those who oppose? The ayes have it. Okay. Action items. We're going to review and consider action on Harvey's lockup located at 27 Monterey Street. Consider resolution 2018 to approve or deny action. So,
See, Madam Chair, if I may, let me just go ahead and give you a staff report on this.
I think this is the best consensus.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Michelle. Okay, Madam Chair. Okay, let's see. Let me go ahead and I'll just start passing it out. Thank you very much. I'll keep this copy and also. And Trish, and then here's some extra copies that.
That was in there, but...
Yeah, it was emailed out.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
thank you very much.
And then I was just walking through that timeline.
Okay, very good.
So they know exactly what's going on.
All right.
Yep.
All right. Okay, Madam Chair, if I can go ahead and continue.
Go right ahead.
All right. Prior to the meeting, staff developed a timeline that you just got passed out. Furthermore, there was extra information that was given out just this morning by staff, or to staff from the applicant, and that's another document that was passed out to you as well. And it was also emailed out this morning. But let me go ahead and jump into the timeline right now, starting from the top. There's been a great deal of work done on Harvey's lockup, located at 27 Monterey here in town. And starting from back in 2009 all the way through where we are today. I'd like to start off with the items 1 through 15. On Tuesday, July 14th, 2009, engineer at that time requested a conditional use permit. On Tuesday, August 25th, 2009, planner requested the fire department set of requirements and timeline to give the owner. And it looks like by Scott and Chris, Scott F. and Chris F. at the time. And on Wednesday, August 26, 2009, public hearing on the conditional use at the time. On Thursday, August 27th, Planning Commission discussion regarding the CUP. And on Tuesday, September 1st, 2009, a resolution 2009-03 was passed by the Planning Commission granting the conditional use permit. That document is included in your packets that you have tonight. On Monday, September 9th, 2013, Planning Commissioner Franco sent an email to staff.
So 4 years later, so what happens in 2009, you guys approve, or the Planning Commission approves conditions of approval with no timeline and no fire action plan and no specifics around the requirements for the fire system and no timeline associated with it. Even though it was requested to the current volunteer fire department at the time, there was no detailed plan that was given to the applicant, although it was requested from staff. It went to Planning Commission and then just died. Nothing happened. Never brought it back up. 4 years later, it gets brought back up by Mr. Franco. Franco brings it up in September of 2009.
Yeah, it looks like September 19th.
To Grimsley at the time. He's asking about the ADA on sidewalks. He's saying he's asking to revoke the conditional use permit because the sidewalks aren't correct. They don't have ADA compliance. So now we go 4 years later. Now the focus is the sidewalks. And now what happens?
Okay, Sunday, September 13th, and I'm assuming that must be a typo right there. Is that 2000?
13.
Okay, 2013, okay. Planner issued a warning letter regarding feral cats in the area.
In Harvey's Lockup.
At Harvey's Lockup, located, and then moving forward, Thursday, October 31st, 2013, Harvey's Lockup owner described before and after in a formal letter that was included in a staff report packet for the November 5th, 2013. Moving forward to my next point.
So hang on. So in that letter, he describes the sidewalks that he's put in place, the signage that he's putting in place, and all the conditions of approval are at the bottom of that timeline. So you see, there's about 6 conditions of approval. There's something around signage, there's something around the sidewalks, there's something around the ramps in the back, there's things around fire suppression, there's sprinklers, and there's a firewall, and there's a tank that's buried. So there's 6 conditions of approval. So the owner comes in with a letter October 31st and says, here's what I've done so far, here's everything that we've done. We've removed the tank, we've taken care of 3 of the 4 sidewalks, they're ADA compliant, we've done the planter boxes like you requested, and we put the signage up. And he says, he appeals to the Planning Commission and he says, I would like to maintain some of the cats. We'll make sure the bulk of them are taken care of, but I'd like to maintain some of the cats to take care of the rodent problem. And you don't see any resolution to this cat issue, but he makes it appeal to work with the city to keep some of them, make sure they're spayed and neutered, but it creates a nice environment to get rid of the rodents. We don't see anything else about the cats or the rodents after that time period if this letter comes out. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Moving forward, Tuesday, November 5th, 2013, Planning Commission reviews conditions of approval. Decided to do more research at the hearing and have the planner put together a timeline for each condition of approval in place. It was postponed or punted, I should say, to December 2013, that following hearing. On December 3rd, 2013, City Manager tells the Planning Commission that owner is working on stray cats and garbage. Then, jumping ahead to 2018.
So 5 years later, it goes dead for 5 years. 5 years, it rears its head again. Ed Tweez, the interim city manager, sends a letter out to the owner in March of 18.
That's correct. Okay. Monday, March 5th, 2018, Ed Tweez hand-delivers letter and spoke to owner and gives a timeline. Monday, March 12th, 2018, formal letter demanding the following timeline be adhered to. 1, submit sidewalk irrigation improvement plan for Church Street by April 1st, 2018. Number 2, contact Chief Padola to develop fire safety plans and inspection of timeline. Number 3, complete sidewalk and landscape improvement plan within 60 days of city approval. 4, ensure the current fire sprinklers are working properly. Early April 2018, Church Street plans delivered to city engineer. Plans were approved and compliant with the standards including ADA. June to August 2018, multiple inspections occurred by Fire Marshal Padola. Current sprinklers charged and functioning. July 2018, fire safety plan developed and approved by Fire Marshal Padola. On Friday, November 9th, 2018, approved fire safety plan signed by owner, city planner, fire marshal. On Tuesday, November 6th, 2018, update on the plan, installed fire control communicator, water flow tamper switches, and existing system connected, monitoring of the sprinklers, smoke and heat detectors, installed and monitored.
So there's a plan that's signed by the planner, the fire marshal, and the owner. You guys have the plan. The owner's already complied with multiple parts of that agreement, and he's just giving us an update. Last week he gave us an update, said, hey, I hit these milestones. Mm-hmm. So the rest of the milestones are in the plan. Do they have the plan in their package?
Yes. Okay. The letter signed and then the update that was given to us by the applicant late last week.
So that's the current situation.
Okay.
We talked about this in between. It wasn't 4 or 5 years, but nothing. We were asked for monthly reports, status reports from former city manager.
I searched his entire hard drive. I searched the server. We have a record that's 5 inches thick here. So we scoured everything, and that's what we came up with. 15 items for this project, a lack of follow-through, a lack of detailed timeline, and it wasn't till March that the sidewalks were the focus in March. And then once we got Madola over there, myself, Tim, the code enforcement person, the emergency manager, safety manager from Hollister, we developed this plan. And that's when the plan came into place. It was formalized and signed off, just so that you guys knew that the owner had skin in the game, and he signed off on it. And then here's the latest on the status for the project plan. I'll also talk about the fact that this owner has invested over $200,000 in this property between the sidewalks and the fire so far. At the end of this, he'll have invested $350,000. It's on the city for not giving the owner a timeline and allowing this to slip and slip and slip. There are emails in Julian's inbox that say, yeah, we're thinking 5 years is about the right time to get this accomplished. There's a huge amount of money for a small business. It's not like we're dealing with a multi-billion-dollar developer here. It's a huge amount of money. The return on investment for an investment of $350,000 for a guy that grosses, that nets, say $50K a year, and he'll probably show us his tax returns. It takes 10 years to recoup that investment. So the city works with these business owners to make sure that they can function as a business.
We have people living in that thing. If anybody had died as a result of the fire, unexpectedly,
it's on us because we did not give him a timeline. It's on us. It's not on him.
Unfortunately, you might want to respect because prior to you and previous administrations, we did not have good planning services. We didn't have good management services. Almost anything went. And I could list you a whole bunch of places that I saw that should have been redone. Something should have been done by the city, but was passed over or nobody enforced. We saw this really with the sign code. You got all kinds of sign code regulations, but if they're not enforced, they may as well not be there. And I think you picked up a good one. No one is following the conditions.
Correct.
When it came up to the planning commission meeting, that was one of the things. We have all these conditions. We have a potential for a fire out there, potential for the city to get sued or something, and there was no really push for compliance. We did bring it up, and like I said, if something was to happen,
and that's great. You brought it up.
What did you guys do to prevent this? We let the guy stay in there. We didn't make him put in a sprinkler system. We had people living there, and everybody who's got something that was lost is going to come down. Who's got the deepest pockets in the city?
Yep.
So I'm concerned, and the city, part of our job, I think, is to keep the city out of trouble. And I think if this thing's going to go for another couple of years, there ought to be some kind of, non-hold harmless or some kind of insurance policy that say, okay, if something happens, the city is held
That's a good idea.
non-responsive or non-whatever.
That's a good idea.
I think that's already in the project approval.
Is it the hold harmless?
We're in
In the conditions of approval. So you have the conditions of approval there. The original conditions of approval, there is a hold harmless clause in that.
Now, is there a policy out there? Because we had one for the brewery, and City Hall did not enforce it to make the guy keep it enforced. The policy expired, and if it hadn't expired, we'd have had the brewery would have been built by now, by the insurance company. But that indemnity policy expired. I mean, again, that was City Hall. So we've had a lot of problems. This commission has been trying to catch up make things right, even if you do it right the second time, but trying to make things right and to keep this from happening again. And it's been an effort, because they've not always had full professional staff support or personal management support. I'm glad to see you on because you are really concerned about the details, and that's something we have not had for a long time.
Well, I want to make sure the details are on the table before there's a lot of accusations out there, which there have been a lot of accusations, and this came to council, and there was a disparaging remark made about this owner, and I didn't like that, and I think that's terribly unprofessional. So the due diligence has to happen. You guys gave the action to this gentleman to come back with this due diligence, which he's doing tonight with my support. That's the way the process works. Now we give you what happened, and you determine what you want to do with that. And this particular thing around the fire is a fire jurisdiction. So if the fire marshal signs off on this, and he says that he's okay with this, and his boss can stand up and say they're okay with this, they're fully aware of it, that building is alarmed, heat and smoke alarmed, we're good with it for now, and we're okay that he invests another $150,000 over the next 4 or 5 years, whatever it is. If they sign off on it, that's on them, and they're the experts. We pay them to be the experts. Unfortunately, the fire marshal could not be here, so I have to stand in for that and talk about that. But for us to claim that we are the experts and know whether that thing's charged or whether it's alarmed and talk about that in public and disparage business owners and make it stressful for them to run their business, that's inappropriate. And I don't want to see that ever happen again to these business owners.
All we're trying to do here is that.
Well, that's okay. I love the fact that you're pushing for due diligence and you're pushing the staff to do the right thing and figure out what's going on and put a timeline in place that's never been in place before. But I'm not okay with public officials disparaging business owners in public or in public meetings without having the facts. I am not okay with that.
Have those public officials been addressed, spoken to about this issue? If it's any one of us?
I won't go into that right now.
Okay.
But that is not okay behavior. And that's not going to happen in the city going forward.
Okay, what we need then is, I think anytime that there's issue, start a 1-year timeline. If all the conditions are not complied within a year.
You have to write it in the conditions of approval.
See, it's never been done.
Specifically what happens.
And that gives a lot of props. See, you're on it. Everybody else before you probably didn't know what we were talking about. But by having that thing in the ordinance, first of all, because got to say this, you got 1 year on the use permit. If you come on the day after it's denied, it no longer exists. So you have to renew your permit before it expires. You can get additional time.
And I tell you, there's 2 other examples of this out in that city, and we're going to have a very tough discussion with these owners of these residents too. There's 2 more of these things that we're cleaning this up, and there's these loose-ended timelines. There's no timelines in place. There's no. It's the sky's the limit.
I can only imagine what you're going.
Oh gosh, you watch. This is just the beginning.
But see, we saw this a couple of years ago when we started with this one.
Mm-hmm.
We started.
But don't beat up this staff for doing the right thing, and don't disparage people without the facts. That's all I ask
I
of
don't
you
think
guys.
we're beating them up. We're just asking you to step up to the plate and give us the information we need, which you have done.
You guys have sidestepped the action item. It short-circuited, and it went to city council without approval, and it blindsided city council, including myself. This should never have gone to city council. It should have been handled here, just as the action was taken. That was disrespectful of staff, and it was not adhering to the actions that you took in this meeting. So that's not correct. That's not appropriate, and that is blindsiding staff, and it's bullying staff. It's like saying, I'm going to use the information I have to blindside somebody, even though the action was in this meeting, to come back to this meeting to figure out what was going on, which was very appropriate.
See, all this stuff on the fire sprinklers that we've never had before. We've asked for it. We've asked that they know.
You asked for it from this staff one time. He took the action to go do it. We're responding to that action tonight.
No, but before you, we have, I'm sorry to let us all reflect on this, but we have brought this up over
Several times.
But don't take it out on this staff and go short-circuit it and go to council and talk about this.
I don't think the commission ever took it out on staff.
Pardon me?
I don't think the commission ever took it out on staff. Staff is part of us.
It did. It did by taking it to council and not allowing staff to address the action in this meeting. It did go to council. Look at the meeting minutes. It got brought up. Staff was blindsided in a city council meeting on this particular topic. And I had to say, time out. This was an action taken in planning commission. I had to ask this planner to complete this action. And he got bullied and pressured to have this go to council before this action was complete. Yes. So allow staff to complete the action before escalating to council, before requesting things to me. Don't take it to me. Let the action be completed where it was assigned in this meeting.
I think the commission had been frustrated because we have wanted this. Like I said, your new administration, this is good. But all this, since this thing came out the first time about 6, 7 years ago, we have been trying.
But don't be frustrated because we're trying to do the right thing now. And the owner's trying to be doing the right thing. That's what I'm saying. Don't short-circuit the process and assume we're not going to do our job and escalate to council. Allow us to do our job and complete the action as assigned. And you did not allow this planner to do that. It got escalated to me before he was able to complete the action. That's not fair to staff. So that's what I'm talking about.
There's some frustration on the commission's part because that's it. We've been at it for a long time.
Yes, we certainly have.
I'm sorry.
And it's been, yes.
An apology is needed to this gentleman right here. Because I beat him up because I'm saying, wasn't this action in your planning meeting? Why aren't we just following through with that action? Why is it coming to me? And why is it coming up in city council? I don't get this.
It never intended to be done.
It did happen. So let's not let that happen again. All right.
So do we have a recommendation from staff? Or are we move on this?
Yes, what are we doing now?
Let's see, at this time, Madam Chair, because I think that kind of concludes staff's information on this. But since this is an action item, do we want to have public comment or anything like that, or the applicants come forward and give some information?
Yes, we do, please.
Let's see. Steve, yeah, here, come on up, Steve.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Steve Ekman. I'm a local contractor. I've been hired by Mr. Adair to give him a hand with various improvements that he needs to make and conditions of approval. I can't speak to things that occurred in the past or lack of action. I think that the fact that there were 3 different administrations that provided different intakes, outputs of information and requirements that weren't, let's say, consistent. The owner, unfortunately, Mr. Adair, is faced with running a business that comes out of an 80-year-old building. And that 80-year-old building competes for funds with action items that are on the condition of approval with basic repairs that he has to make on his building. He has to not only fund the ongoing improvements that he has to make in order to conduct a business, he has to deal with repairs. I can give you a list of the monies that he has spent in the past to be able to do these things, and what we are anticipating spending. I'm sorry. I'm hearing impaired, so maybe this will help me with what I have to say. Okay. Is that better? Can you hear me?
You're tall, kind of. So anyway,
it is in his chest. So.
Okay.
You can pick it up and take it right out.
It actually, yeah.
Doesn't it fall forward?
There we go. Is that?
It's fine. We can.
I think it's okay.
It's fine. It's good.
I'll lean forward. How's
There
that? Okay. We've prepared a list of expenses that he's incurred to date, and also a list of expenses that he anticipates having to spend. I'd like to pass those out if I could.
I'll start. Give them to the clerk, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
It's two separate things.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If you take a look at it, the first one is a list of expenses that have been incurred to date, and the listing of those individual items as they apply to the building. And if you take a look at the other sheet, it's a list of expenses that are anticipated. Now, Mr. Adair has to function with this building and also be able to conduct a business there. This business is dependent upon him providing a specified service, which is storage of personal contents. Now, unfortunately, the building is not cooperating. It has a very leaky roof. What he is going to have to do is to seal up that roof. These are expenses that he was not anticipating. He also has to comply with the conditions of approval, and we have no problem with those conditions. We are of the utmost concern is towards fire safety. We are looking forward to an inspection of the living quarters and also providing whatever services are necessary to address those individual buildings and have them comply. We have a a fire monitoring system that is scheduled to be in place. I believe it's the 9th. It's on the bottom. I can't remember all of the dates because there's a lot of dates.
Well, you guys signed off to having certain things
Right.
by certain times. I mean, that's all that we really need to see is the owner's signature on that, the fire marshal's signature, and the city's signature, that we're all in alignment with the timeline.
We are, and I just want to speak on behalf of Mr. Adair and say we are 100% behind that. We have been stuck at various points in time through inaction, through differing standards. Each one of these individual items that we comply with are now costing Mr. Adair upwards of 20 to 50% more. These are costs that he is having to absorb in addition to running this business. Unfortunately, none of these items, not a single one, increases his ability to make money. This is all out of pocket. We were stuck at various points in time. We asked for some assistance from Michelle, city manager, to be able to get beyond some of the intractable parts that were created by 3 separate administrations. Not everyone, the institutional memory is gone, meaning who remembers what from these various periods of time. So when you have an instance where we're dependent upon information from the city, no one knows. We've had to deal with documents that were inaccurate, lack of information with regards to construction requirements. There's quite an extensive list, and it's not by lack of desire on the part of Mr. Adair to complete these things. Until Michelle brought in a hands-on approach and said, okay, what can we do? How can we move forward? It was her efforts and the efforts of Todd Kennedy that enabled us to make the progress that we did. And in the last 6 months, we've made a lot of progress on just about all of the items.
And the fire marshal.
And the fire marshal. The fire marshal was probably the most important. But he's agreed to a timeline, and the owner has signed off on it. That's an agreement between him and the fire marshal. And the fire marshal is happy with that. So, are there any questions that I can provide answers to?
Anybody have any
Do
questions?
you guys have the timeline for the fire safety in front of you?
Yes.
You do this? Okay. So if you have issues with the timeline, that has to go to the fire marshal and the chief in Hollister, because they're okay with that timeline. They've approved it. They feel that public safety is okay because they've signed off on this timeline. So if you want to argue with the fire jurisdiction, then you guys have to take it up there. I got them, I got the owner and planning all to agree to a timeline and the pertinent actions to comply with the fire safety aspects of the conditions of approval.
Okay. So, may I ask because of the fire issues, why the sidewalk was prioritized above before, putting in the sprinkling system?
I have no idea.
I think it was the ADA issues.
I have no idea, but it was prioritized prior, like back in 2013, and it was prioritized in March above the fire.
Okay.
But that was before I started to even work on this.
Okay.
And it could be that the fire department, there was not a good relationship with the fire department to sit down and spend hours, literally hours, walking through that building, myself, the fire marshal, and the owner, and the city engineer and planner and code enforcement, spending hours walking through that, understanding the building, developing phases, understanding the 3 components of that building. Maybe there was no relationship to go out to the fire marshal and say, hey, let's walk through this, let's go through it, figure out what needs to happen. Because the action was out there in 2009. The action ironically went to Scott Friels, as he was a volunteer, to develop this very same plan that we finally developed with Vodola. So I have no idea why that never happened. But there's clearly emails requesting that from Scott Friels, from Scott Furman or something like that. So Benstack, or Chris Benstack, back in 2009. And there was nothing that ever came of that. And then it just died and just like kind of lingered and lingered and lingered. And then Mr. Frankel brought it up in 2013, and then it went to 2 meetings and then just lingered and lingered and lingered. And then I guess it was brought up to Ed Twee's So he sends a letter out.
Not Gary back, brought it to us
Mm-hmm. When was this?
way back.
Way back then? Which then are we talking about?
The 2009 to 13 or the 13 to 15? Or
I
18?
wasn't here at 9, 10 or 11. I started at 11.
Okay.
Okay, is a performance bond in order?
Do you guys have a performance bond?
To my knowledge, there is no performance bond in terms of the actual construction. We are so close to being to the end of it that a performance bond would have so little value. He has to get these things done. They are part of the condition of approval.
What's left on the sidewalk?
We're awaiting, the sidewalk has its own story. Number one, we were given a survey done by Tunstall, the engineering company that provided engineering services, that was incorrect. We could not build that sidewalk with the information that was provided. So we had to have a separate meeting with a new city engineer and figure out the way to do this. In the meantime, an agreement that the owner had with the previous administration, Roger Grinsley gave us a diagram of what we could do with regards to constructing the sidewalk. But that is no longer applicable because the city of San Juan is now adopting City of Hollister standards. And that cost difference is about 50%. So we also had a tenant that refused to move. That delayed that whole process by at least 2.5 months, I think it was.
So we're okay with the
Okay.
with what's going on. I just want to know what's left in the sidewalk. To Mr. Franco's question about the performance bond, how much of the sidewalk is remaining to do?
We have gutter, pan, and curb left to do. And there is one section that requires an under sidewalk drain. That is being fabricated and is being sent from American Foundry. These are very rare items. You don't get a lot of these things. And
What's the cost of the remaining?
The cost of the remaining items are left to do in terms
Just the
of...
sidewalk. Just let's focus on the
Oh,
sidewalk.
the sidewalk, I would say it's probably about $6,000. A performance bond for that amount of money just doesn't make any sense. You would be paying more for the performance bond than you would get value from it. And we aren't, we want to get that thing done. We are obligated to do it.
So what about the cost of doing the remaining fire stuff?
The cost of the remaining fire stuff, I think, is included in one of those sheets, and I believe it's about $100,000.
Mm-hmm.
Now, he has to come up with that money to be able to complete those things. But it seems like every time he makes progress on one item, it opens up another ballpark Pandora's box. We installed the fire alarm monitoring system. Now, it uses an infrared spectrum to communicate with different monitors in the building. What now may occur is, with his leaky roof, we've installed an alarm system that is going to go off every time there's a rainstorm. So we're trying to figure out how we're going to mitigate that kind of a situation. This is what I mean. Every single item now explodes into additional costs and time. So...
well, the thing is that none of that is the city's problem. You guys have agreed to a timeline. Now,
yes.
The question that Franco is asking is, that's a pretty big sum of money. Do we need to get a performance bond to back up this 125K that's remaining to do on the sprinklers?
On the work that is necessary for the remainder of the sprinklers is going to have to be addressed with additional funding, and he's going to be taking care of that in order to complete the sprinkler situation. But he's agreed to a timeline on it. He's signed off and made an agreement with the city and with the fire department as to when those things are going to occur. And it's not lack of his desire nor anything else. He just has had a lot of issues come up that weren't anticipated.
Yeah, but that's part of doing business. So the question now is, do we need a performance bond to make sure that this happens? The other thing that's at stake, and I know that the letter that this planner, the owner, and the fire department signed is that if this doesn't happen, then we have to red tag. The business cannot operate.
Right.
So that's a big leverage point.
That's the big hammer.
Yeah. So there's a question on whether we want to push for a performance bond. There's a hammer on, yeah, you're going to get red tagged if this doesn't happen. But it cost my mind to do a performance bond. I'm not sure if that's necessary.
I think up to now we haven't had anybody who's prepared to use a hammer from your side, city manager office, and you're prepared to carry this thing to the extent of the law, because that permit is a legal document, because it comes out with an ordinance. So it isn't just policy.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
It is the law. So every one of those conditions, if they're not complied with, is a violation of the law. And as long as our city manager is prepared to enforce that, and I'm sorry the previous ones didn't.
Mm-hmm.
We've brought up many, many times. I know it's not recorded on this site. We bring it up, we see a sheet,
and then disappears, yeah.
So I think you're seeing a new age in San Juan Bautista for the better. But it's taken off. You can see what it's taken a lot of problems happening. They came to a head. And the city manager said, okay, let's clean this up.
Well, I have to say, on behalf of Mr. Adair and myself, without the assistance by the city manager and staff, we still would be struggling with various things. And it's lack of information, as I was trying to say, a lack of institutional memory that kind of paralyzes the city. At one point, I know that he was ready to take some action on some items, and then found out that the city was essentially out of business for a month or 6 weeks. During that period of time, where there was no building inspector, there was no anyone to answer questions with regards to, well, how do we go about doing this? What is necessary? What are our standards? Why can't we get that information? That's not his fault.
Sometimes it's harder to write the specification than actually execute to the specification, because there's a lot of design engineering and all that involved with the specification on the fire system and the sidewalk, curb and gutter and all that. So, yeah, we've spent a lot of hours on this. The city engineer spent a lot of hours. Unfortunately, his son had a basketball game, but he said that these guys have hit all their milestones relative to the outer perimeter sidewalk. I talked to him before the meeting. The fire marshal obviously signed off on the plan, and so far they've executed to their milestones. So the thing is, if the milestones don't get executed to on time, we will red tag it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, and I would agree with that. But we want to be proactive. There are things that we want to do ahead of time, and that is getting those units inspected, and whatever work that needs to be done in terms of fire monitoring, we want to get that going now.
Is there still somebody living in the building?
I'm sorry?
Is there somebody still living in there?
The apartments are still occupied. But we're going to be talking with the fire marshal in terms of an inspection for a number of different items. It's not only the fire monitoring systems, but also fire egress and whatever else is necessary for compliance. We want that now.
Okay, do we have enough?
That's quite a status.
Yes, that is. So the city is not liable if a fire does happen? That's my big question.
So actually cities are immune from liability for failure to inspect, failure to enforce fire codes. There's a lot of immunities, not setting a fire. I mean, for most things, cities are immune from any kind of liability for fire-related injuries and enforcement, etc.
Considered act of nature too.
Well, it's just the law built in immunities, because otherwise cities wouldn't be able to function without those kind of immunities from those kind of damages.
The king can do no wrong.
Right.
The who can do no wrong?
The thing is coming on. The king can do no wrong.
They can't do no wrong. Okay.
So that allows for sometimes people maybe not to be as diligent about enforcing code, municipal code, engineering code standards, coming up with their own standards. I think that's part of it.
I see one thing that, if all these conditions of approval, a lot of times if they're external, they improve the quality of the city. Didn't have curb gutter sidewalks, now you do, so everything's getting better. And if you don't do a condition of approval of those type, basically you're getting an economic advantage over your neighbors.
Correct.
And it's just not realized by you.
No. No. But I will say, just based on my experience, you've got to educate the business owner as you're going through this process, because you've got people that are very deep pocketed that can go do developments, and there's no problem putting a new street in or curb and gutter or all kinds of fire stuff in. Sometimes I don't think people realize what they're getting themselves into, and or it's not explained to them properly before they make that investment, there was the Vietnamese restaurant owner here. And it's really important we accurately describe the level of investment that needs to happen to transform that building into what they want. And get that very clear right up front, because I don't know if the owner would have gone down this path if he knew he was going to invest nearly $500,000 in infrastructure and fire protection. Because the warehouse could have just sat there being, a huge fire hazard for the city. Nobody would have ever bought it. Right now it's 90% better than having fuel, vehicles, whatever in there, just a big storage unit in the middle of town. The city would have to go in and potentially just demolished it, spent a lot of money removing all the toxic stuff out of there. They had a fuel tank in the ground. I mean, he removed that. I mean, it's gotten 90% better than it was. Unfortunately, I wish that somebody would have explained how complex and difficult and expensive this undertaking was.
Oh, it is an 80-year-old building with a lot of history.
But you also have some city administration that sell business owners, hey, we'll work with you. Point in case, Casa Rosa. It's a very similar case. I shouldn't be talking about it's on the report, the Excel spreadsheet, this report, so I can talk about it. But we have to be very careful. That's why I think it's very important that there's a business mindset in this discussion so that people understand the return on investment and hitting standards and what it takes to get there. You can run yourself into bankruptcy not knowing what you're up against.
I bring a case in point, and that is the fact that the sprinkler system was a condition of approval. Well, a sprinkler system means a sprinkler system to me. This monitoring system is a $30,000 investment that he has to make that he had no idea that he was going to have to make. That's in addition to the fire sprinklers. So if you look at the code or the conditions of approval, he's met them with the fire sprinklers. But now this monitoring system is being forced upon him. And he's willing to do that. But
The issue is it's an interpretation on what is a sprinkler. So the previous administration might have said, hey, just put sprinklers in, and we'll turn the sprinklers on if you get a fire, period. The previous administration did ask the volunteer fire department to outline what was that condition, what is the detail behind fire safety for Harvey's lockup. No response from that organization for 8 years. Now we finally get somebody to say, okay, this is what it means, and we actually had to also collaborate with the fire inspection company. They were involved with determining the spec, and then we all agreed, yeah, this will keep everybody safety. It gives everybody a heads up if there's heat, if there's smoke. We're being pretty hard on the owner, saying, because we know this is, in the middle of the city, and we want to have that monitoring, smoke and heat specifically, so we can get the fire department there ASAP. But that wasn't in the conditions of approval. Heat and smoke monitoring, remote monitoring was not in there. It was just sprinklers. That's the only thing that was in there. And you can define that, and he could probably argue it that sprinklers are putting sprinklers in, turning a valve. That's sprinklers. It doesn't say monitored, it doesn't say alarmed, none of that.
Now, where did the conditions come from?
They come from this group.
In my experience, you send a copy of the application to the fire marshal. And the
fire marshal was right over here in the volunteer fire
No,
department.
but I mean, you send it to the fire marshal, and he reviews it, and says, okay, these is what we need.
That's right.
So, something we didn't get what we needed.
There was just a very vague list, 7 items. Remove a tank, put fire sprinklers in, put sidewalks around the building, put geraniums in planter boxes on your window boxes, put signs that are compliant with the historical sign law. Those were the conditions. That vague. They're in your package. So we have to determine, with collaboration with the emergency team, with code enforcement, with the engineer, with the fire department, what will keep the city safe. We developed the spec. We developed the plan. Thank God the owner is willing to accept the plan to keep the business running, because the business is needed in this community. We need storage. There are people moving, renting, moving, buying houses. We need storage. It's a business that we need here. So thank God he's stepping up to the plate and saying, shit, I'm having the bars way up here to keep everybody safe, and I guess I'll do it. So he's stepping up. And now we got a plan, and it's pretty robust.
What you've done tonight is you've brought a lot of detail to us that we needed to know and had no idea what was happening. I think you've done a service to the commission. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, and this is the kind of transparency we hope we can continue.
Just ask for it, and we'll provide it. Give us.
On out, with a date on the date of expiration on the permits, and list those conditions.
Mm-hmm.
And code enforcement follows through on it.
Right.
This shouldn't happen.
That's right. Let's hope not.
I'm sorry, Mr. There had this problem, but without all this background information, again, part of the city's problem, we have no way of knowing.
That's right. Okay, so we have a resolution to...
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Thank you for your...
I think the big thank you goes to Mr. Dare, because he's stepping up to the plate, and he's had to go through this for a while.
And thank you to Mr. Dare for being with us and being part of our community and basically providing the service that as long as it's available to us.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So, Madam Chair, I don't think legally you need to take an action to maintain the status quo. So if you're okay with the status quo, I don't believe you need to pass a
Resolution, okay, thank you for that advice. All right, everybody else good, okay with that?
Does the public need to speak up on this?
Do we ask for public comment at this time? Or do we-
There's no public comment.
There's no public, okay?
I'm a little confused about, we have 2 resolutions in our packet.
Well, yeah, but she just told us that we didn't need to take action on them.
So what is the status quo? Just keep on keeping on?
Keep on with the plan.
Adhere to that plan that we signed off on.
We're gonna, got it.
Yeah.
Stick with the plan.
And Mike, and I wanted to hear a recommendation from staff, because that's where we wanted to go to, the professional people that's working on this, with you and my concern, and I shared it with Todd. It was the safety of the occupants and the owner, and of course the community. And I felt comfortable with the response I got. But I'm still looking for our staff to give a recommendation. And I think what it's been is to move forward on this. In the best way we can, as we have been, to eliminate any further delays in our process. And I'm comfortable with that.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Okay. We are now on, okay, we're on 6 discussion items. 6A, proposed residential development on a large parcel located on Lawson Drive. The property owner is Dave McGovern. Okay. Go ahead, staff.
Okay.
Where do we start?
Yeah.
We need to have a discussion about the name of the street. Lawson.
Lawson.
Lasuden.
Was that spelled correctly?
No.
No.
Did you do that misspelling?
It's actually on both maps, and one's spelled one way, the other map is spelled the other way.
So you gave her the wrong spelling?
I just spelled it out the way it was written on the map.
The sign out there is with a U after the S. I believe that's what it was. That's who in? Yeah.
Okay. Well, but it was on the map as Lawson. So,
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll put Lawson
Yeah,
on
both
the
of them.
map.
Well, it's important because of the historical aspects of that being, and the sign out on the street's correct. And so just note that for future.
Understood. Yeah, it just came from both the parcel maps and our general plan map, and I just cross-checked the spelling. But there's another one where it was written another way. We'll make that correction.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Madam Chair, if I may, if I go to give a staff report. This is a discussion item. This was turned in back at the end of just this last month. It's a proposal for new residential development on a new created lot near the water tank, just south of town. The applicant's name is Dave McGovern. He has been involved and has been very responsive to staff. It's new residential development that includes a larger modular home, a smaller modular home, a shop, an accessory building, and also a cargo container that's on the property. He purchased the property. He's done a great deal of improvements on there in terms of cleanup and even the property maintenance improvements. At this time, I would like to just present this to the Planning Commission to obtain feedback at this time. Plans have been submitted to engineering, building, and fire for their comments. I'm expecting them back probably the next couple of days. And this item will be taken to you at a future item because site design review, new construction, requires Planning Commission review and approval. But I just wanted to give you an update and give you some information and to allow the applicant to give a presentation and introduce himself, and also as the commission to introduce themselves as well, and just to go over information and concerns that you may have.
Does this, all that you've done, reflect the hillside ordinance?
Yes, that's all part of the due diligence. That's all part of the due diligence. Part of what I'm doing right now is to introduce this to the Planning Commission to get feedback. I'm working on my due diligence, including environmental review as well. Part of the submittal included a geologic report because being up in the hills, seeing visible traces of landslides and so forth, that's one of the things that need to be mitigated if construction should move forward. That was one of the things that we've talked several times when I met with the applicants. That concludes my presentation tonight. I can answer any questions. We do have the applicants here in the audience. As of this morning, they sent me updated images that I emailed out to the commission. So anyway, just like to really commend them for their work and everything, and just hear any questions or comments that you may have tonight.
Any comments up here? Would we like to hear from them?
I do, if nobody else.
Yeah.
Just a question that I know that there's been some work on the property, and there's a fence up there and everything else.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's already, the staff has been helping out with that too as well, and
That is
you're aware of that?
correct. That is correct.
Okay.
Yeah, there's been some stuff, concerns and inquiries raised to staff's attention. That's one of the reasons I wanted to bring it tonight, so that way you can see the whole thing as a whole. Since the owner bought the property, he's really embarked on a great deal of cleanup up there, using his own equipment and his own time to remove trees. I think we signed off on 2, maybe 3 tree removal permits, I think. They're all administrative. After looking at pictures, they look like they need to be removed. And but yes, that is true about the fence, and and even some there's talk about electrical as well. But once again, that's why this project needs to move forward, so that way we can tie into stuff and it can move forward with the building permit process.
Are there any plans to improve the road?
That's a good question. That's one of the reasons why I sent this over to our engineering staff, so that way they can make any kind of comments.
Because it's pretty steep right there. It's pretty, there's, the car runs away from going down that hill. They're going right into the highway, basically. So I just wondered if there was anything that we might want to look at that as a city.
That's a comment I did take
develop that.
And I could ask the city engineer.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, he did give me a quick update. He was going to go through the plans that our engineering staff are going through, and probably the next day or so I should have those comments back. But that's a question I can ask, definitely.
Okay. Shall we have
I think
the
Public comment?
okay, at this time, any public comment?
any public comment?
Yes, Matt Kelly.
Before we get public comments, how about having the applicant present what he's going to do?
Yes, that's what I thought.
I'm here to represent the applicant.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. My name is Matt Kelly. I'm a professional engineer and land surveyor from Hollister, and it's my privilege to represent Dave McGovern here tonight. And it's my honor to speak with you, to answer any questions that you may have, and to receive any comments that you may have. The project is on the hillside. We developed grading plans with great sensitivity and respect to the hillside ordinance. We did that by minimizing the grading impact to the property, and Mr. McGovern did that by requesting an application for very small buildings. The primary residence is about 1,800 square feet or less. The secondary residence is about 400 square feet. The shop building that he's requesting is only about 600 square feet, and the storage container is only about 300 square feet. And with respect to a 4-acre parcel, this is an extremely small impact. Another aspect of the grading is we located the buildings by carving a niche into the hillside. In other words, we're very respectful of the skyline. None of the buildings impact the skyline. Completely below the ridge. At the top of the ridge is Dave's neighbor, and he has a beautiful picture window where he has a beautiful view of the valley. And we were very respectful of that, and Dave's proposed building is completely below that. He wouldn't even be able to see Dave's roof from his viewpoint. With respect to geological concerns, Dave hired a geological engineer, and he reviewed the property. We received a letter from him, and his only concern with susceptible sliding is located in the southeast corner of the property, and he delineated that on an exhibit that we provided with him, and we added those delineations to our plans. He recommended a 60-foot setback be respected for that area, and we're way over 100 feet from there with our buildings. Dave also hired a geotechnical engineer to analyze the soils on the property and to provide foundation recommendations. And that work's been done. The soil is mainly stiff clays, and the foundation style is a pier and grade beam design. It's a permanent foundation, although the homes that are preferred are being manufactured off-site. They're not trailers. They're beautiful manufactured homes, and they'll be secured to permanent foundations. If they have any other questions regarding the project, I'd be happy to answer them.
Are there any other questions from the commission? So mitigating the landslide is you have considerable setback and, okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
The area of concern has been identified on the plans,
Okay,
as
great.
well as the 60-foot setback, and we're well clear of that.
Okay, that's good to know. Well, I do like the designs.
Thank you. Hopefully you're looking at the ones with the kind of a log cabin look to them? Okay,
Yeah, I
good.
printed those up.
Good, great, yeah. The one element of the hillside ordinance that we have not addressed yet is submitting a landscape plan, and we intend to do that. We're going to plant some trees to soften the impact of the homes on the hillside. But as Todd pointed out, and thank you for your presentation, Dave's done a wonderful job of cleaning up the property. There's a beautiful split rail fence that goes all the way up the driveway. And I was getting gas at Villaro the other day, and I was looking back there, and you could see the fence going up. It's really nice. Not only to his property, but on his own accord. He cleaned up a lot of trash under the bridge right there, respective of near the property, and he also did some fence repairs there. And again, on his own accord, nobody paid him to do that.
Okay, we appreciate that kind of service.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, any questions from anybody?
Oh, just covered quite a few things.
Yeah. Well, I think thank you.
Whatever you're doing, keep it up.
Yes. Yeah, whatever you're doing, keep it up. This looks pretty good, so I think we should put it on, move forward with whatever the next steps are on this.
That's right.
Comment? Any public comment?
Any public comment?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Jolene Cosio?
Yeah, that's a beautiful white fence there. It looks very ranch-like. I have no problem with someone building a house, especially on the lower portion of that 4-acre parcel. But we are a residential neighborhood. I object to the leaving of the cargo container that's existing, and I want to know if there's going to be a shop there. Is there going to be traffic and that sort of thing? This is a single-family residence neighborhood. I want to know, is that fence along his property line? And if so, where will the sidewalk go? Because when you build in San Juan, you're required to put in a sidewalk. I'm not really sure that that's a great idea on that hillside, but that's what our ordinance says. So I don't know, like I said, if that fence is on the property line, there needs to be a sidewalk on his property, not on city property, is my understanding of how that works. But I'm not sure about that. I wish that there was a little more time taken on the tree removals, because there were raccoons, there were falcons, there were all sorts of critters in there. We even have a resident roadrunner up there that may have been living in there. I've seen him in the street since then, so he's okay, but I don't know where he's living now. Yeah, I didn't know we had roadrunners around here, but I've seen him myself, and so have several of the neighbors. So, yeah, what's that?
No rattlesnakes.
I think those were taken care of by the ranchers a long time ago. We have a lot of king snakes, but not so much on rattlesnakes. And
The rattlesnakes in them.
Oh, yeah, but they'll eat any snake or lizard, they're not particular. But anyway, yeah, it's a beautiful parcel, and I'm looking forward to having a new neighbor with the house. He needs to understand that that road is not only steep, but cannot bear traffic. It was incorrectly done when they paved over the old road after the construction going up to the new water tank. There was never any moisture barrier put down under that road as there should have been. And so it's a very delicate road. And I do have concerns about what sounds like might be a business going in there and several buildings. And I'm a little skeptical that there really isn't going to be any impact on the hillside. You know, there's water issues, there's a lot of issues that are going to require a lot of work to mitigate, including the environmental, you know, the critters that live up there.
Thank you, Ms. Cosio. Okay.
Then Givert.
Hello, me again. So I've heard a lot of references to the hillside ordinance, and I want to be sure that we're talking about the hillside development regulations that were adopted in 2016. Do you have that?
I think so, yeah, it's in code.
Chapter 11-08. Because there are a lot of reasons why this has to be, and I hope that this will be included in the packets when this comes back.
Oh, yes.
The purpose of this is to maintain existing rural character, preserve landforms, retain the natural landscape, preserve wildlife habitats, and protect the ridgeline view, the viewshed, to ensure that development fits within the characteristics, terrain, physical constraints, and topographical features of the surrounding area. So there's more than just the steepness and the grade and all that. There's the viewshed. So keep that in mind.
Okay. Thank you.
Kevin McGovern.
Thank you.
Hello, my name's Kevin. I'm Dave's son. I just wanted to let you guys know kind of what's going on our side. I went to school here in San Juan and Andor as well. It's been a big part of my growing up is here. It's kind of where I want to be. So when we've seen the 4 acres there, it's kind of something we wanted and build 2 little houses, one for him and one for me. And as far as the shop goes, it's just going to be for our storage for our company. We work together. We have a construction company. And that's just kind of going to be our storage area and put our cars and stuff in there. There's going to be no business. The only people that go up there would be us and Dave at the top and anyone at the city water tower like that. As far as anything, how that goes, we're more than happy to do anything there.
So you're not working out of the shop?
No. We're general building contractors.
To the side.
Sure, yeah. Like that's just for our hand tools and small stuff like that. Just something covered, you know, because we don't have anything attached to the homes specifically to bring that structure down low, keep it out of sight. So the buildings that we do have up top are they blend in real nice, and I would think they fit the surrounding area pretty well. And as far as the engineer bringing it down, and he's kept in mind the city and how everything here is, and we kind of know how it is, and I've seen this town grow, and I like it, and I want to be here, and my dad does too. So.
Would you mind taking any of us up there sometime?
I would love to. I would give you guys our business card. You can call us anytime. We'll be more than happy to go up there with any of you guys.
Okay. Yes, let's have a field trip.
We did this for the
Rancho Vista? Okay.
The planning commission went out there and stopped the whole area with the developers. So we had an idea. It wasn't just talking in space. It was seeing what was happening, where it was happening.
Yeah.
And as far as habitat, there was maybe 1 tree on the property, and it had split from rotting out, split in 2 pieces. So it really wasn't going to be a tree anymore. And that's the only reason that we removed it, was because it was kind of more of an eyesore than even of a living tree. So
it could be a fire hazard.
Sure, yeah. So that was our plan, and we went through the city and got our permits and went through Tim and Todd and everybody there. That's what we did. So.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay. Sounds good. I think we'll move this on. Now we are on discussion item 6B, report from planner on current and upcoming projects.
See, Madam Chair, I think besides the projects.
Thank you very much for coming.
Yeah, I think besides what we just talked about tonight with those discussions, I have nothing more except for maybe in the project reports, the Excel sheet. One of the things, I am going to speak on an applicant's behalf, but I want to keep it very generic. 70 McKelvey at the old Chalmers House site, over there across the street from Valero. The applicant or the property owner was going to give a presentation tonight, but when I spoke with him this morning, he wanted to take some time and go back through, his information and then come back, and then also get a determination of the building official on the site, and also just get fine-tune his project plan that can match the zoning, which out there at the location is mixed use zoning, so he wants to get his density right, and he anticipates on coming back at a later time. So I just wanted to kind of give the planning commission that update.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm talking out of turn, but I just want to just address that.
No, we appreciate any kind of thing that's
Upcoming
coming down
projects. Does that upcoming project that you're talking about in this particular property, is that associated with what was planned there before?
It's right now, we looked over the case file that he had before, and it's going to be similar, but architectural elements from the Chalmers House are anticipated to be put into the designs of the buildings to complement the Chalmers House and its legacy.
Okay. Okay. Before the Chalmers House, okay. All right.
Third question.
Go ahead.
Page on Rancho Vista.
Which number is it? Item
5.
Okay.
On page 1 of 3. Construction is ongoing. Water moratorium is still in place. What does that mean? Do they have water with those units?
Let's see. Are we talking about the
Rancho Vista.
The Excel sheet?
Yes, number 5.
Okay.
Rancho Vista.
As far as I know, that was information provided. Let's see, let me just read that over, make sure I'm reading it. Yeah, construction ongoing, water moratorium, yes.
So they don't have water for the units?
As far as I know, the water moratorium is in place at this time. So right now, I don't think water has been lifted for those units at this time. I mean, I'm not sure on the information on that, but that's to the best of my knowledge.
Well, we'd like to know more about that.
But I'd like to dig in more information.
Thank you.
See where it is, but that's the last I've heard.
Okay.
What about a roundabout? Is that still going in?
As far as I know, the roundabout is being worked on between the Rancho Vista property and across the street, the properties across the street. Yeah, that's been discussed with their engineer.
That's the one on First Street.
Are you
But
talking?
it's still in the plan.
Yes.
Let me. I'd like to take a note on that and report back to you, and plug that into.
Because they've already done a lot of cement work around there already, especially with sidewalks and curb gutters and everything, which leads right out onto on San Juan Highway there. So it looks like I'm not sure, but I thought that's where the roundabout was going.
That's one. Okay. Okay. Property has been approved by general plan amendment. Is there any other questions about anything on here? So I see something's happening with La Casa Rosa here, a work order that was filed to put up the construction fence. We got that up.
That one definitely needs a performance bond.
Yes.
Madam Chair, if I can make a comment on Casa Rosa, we have an appointment set up with a structural engineer to come out on November 20th in the morning to do an assessment on site.
Okay.
And to
That's
see
going
what
to be on the 20th. Okay. Engineer. Okay. So we'll know more next time.
I know there's a brewery is the lease up there.
The brewery is?
Yeah, there's a sign on the building.
Still needs a lot of work, doesn't it?
But whoever gets it won't have to go to the planning commission, or they will too.
Yes, they will, because the plans have expired, because he came to ask us about that.
Well, and actually, Commissioner Franco, if I could just interject, in addition to that, and we talked about the action that the city attorney gave earlier on the previous case, that site design review was revoked by the city council based on the previous resolution. I don't know that number offhand, so yeah, they'd have to come back through. They'll have to visit the planning commission, HRB planning commission again.
It could go past the design because we approved the design at one time, so I don't know what more we can do on that.
Well, there was just updating codes.
Yeah, no, there's inside, but the structure itself.
Yeah.
And then there's this commercial and there's mixed use building that also is part of that permit.
Yes, there was a cottage behind it or something.
Apartment.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, let's see, Madam Chair, I think there was a couple other things put in this list. Item number 6. Let's see. Under new development, under new development, item number 6, we talked about earlier in our meeting. But let me go to number 5 real quick at 410 3rd Street. Since back on October 2nd, ladies and gentlemen, it was brought to staff's attention
Where are we?
Item number 5 on the
new development.
That was Rancho Vista.
No, on page 3. On page 3 of the packet. 3 of the packet.
Right.
3 of the packets.
Yeah, and then look for number 5 under new development.
Okay. Gas station?
No. That's look for 410 3rd Street.
Right here. Yeah, that's number 5.
Yeah.
See that right there? Okay. That is 410 3rd Street. That is the
Pepper Tree building.
Yeah, that's the Pepper Tree building. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to address a question that was brought to staff's attention about that site. It was discussed and the concern was raised about the construction equipment taking up those parking spaces along that side. I did bounce that information off the applicant, and sure enough, they finished up with their scope of work by the end of that following week. However, there's been a few other projects that have all been approved. I just want to say that note for the record. But it's all done administrative because one's a tenant improvement that's currently underway right now, and the other one was a paint job that just wrapped up recently, to repaint that building. Staff approved it and looked it over, determined that it met the design guidelines because one thing about the Pepper Tree, as opposed to the two 404 and 406 and other buildings across the street, that building is non-historic. It's a non-historic building within the downtown historic district, as we can see on our map over here. So it kind of like, it's this, but it's that. But after cross-checking the historic resources ordinance very carefully and the design guidelines and looking at the paint colors and kind of matching them up, it was determined that that's an improvement. And, I have to really commend the applicants for doing that kind of work. And right now, their next scope of work is that tenant improvement inside that office right there. Now, that you might have seen trailers and construction equipment out there. Based on talking to the applicant, based on bouncing this off, is he anticipates to be wrapped up and finished up probably by the first week or 2 of January, give or take. Now, the building inspector did do an inspection out there, walked the site, determined that no permits were required. Because all that's taking place in there is a reflooring of the site inside, and new cabinetry work. No plumbing, no electrical is being
walls or anything.
Nothing like that. Nothing like that. It's basically replacing floor, replacing cabinetry work, and maybe doing some some of the ceiling work up in there. I walked inside the site myself and went inside there. So that's the latest on there. Basically, the property owner is investing a good amount of money on that site. There's been a series of permits this last spring that have been issued, including dry rot repair, a couple of some of the boards replaced, the re-roofing, the re-siding that we all knew about, and the repaint, and now this latest tenant improvement. That should be the last of the series of projects on that site. The next scope of work that she does anticipate is just basic landscaping. Put in a few landscape planters, or I should say just pots and, some of the landscaping to decorate the site.
Okay. Thank you. All right. And the Midnight Express is doing something?
Right now, they have submitted their first round of, they're submitting. They have went through their first round of comments. There are some comments issued from building, planning, and engineering, and we're meeting with the applicants to discuss the next steps.
Okay, great. I was hoping that was going to get going. All right. Is this water moratorium also been affecting the Copperleaf subdivision?
As far as I know, that is the case.
So that hasn't been lifted, huh?
Yes, but
are we waiting for a state?
I think we're waiting for the state's
state permission or
on that.
something?
But once again, I got to look into that.
Okay, thank you. I would like to know what's going on with that.
I believe that's been spearheaded by my city manager and and our engineering staff.
Okay. Researching okay, you're researching that your control is and then the fault line is moving forward with zone change. Now, when are we supposed to do this general plan cleanup?
Okay, moving forward. Okay, sorry, Madam Chair.
That's all right.
Yeah, long day, long night. The first wave of that general plan cleanup is with the fault line. That's what it was intended to be, to do that zone change. That's anticipated to be heard next week at City Council for the second reading. Okay. And then we got 30 days before it finally takes effect by state law. Okay. So we have until, if all goes right, if there's no appeals, providing it's anticipated by Friday, December 21st is when we can move forward with building permits on that site. Now, I do think this is probably, since we already have that, and a little bit of a schedule dialed in for that one, we might want to talk more, and let's discuss more about general plan changes and general plan cleanup efforts that we need to take care of.
Yes. Other general plan things.
Yeah, this was the first wave to help clean up shop, like was discussed, I think it was back in June, May or June, I think, to help clean up shop. And anyway, so this is the first wave, and let's discuss some more stuff. I think I might have overtalked, I'm sorry.
That's all right. Thank you very much. Any other questions or comments? So, planning commissioners?
Yeah, I got some kind of things here.
Can you use your microphone?
Oh, we got a letter from the San Juan Historical Society that had various items in it. Back in 2015, the Historic Resources Board reviewed some board policies. Now, I've got a copy of these, they're not on the agenda, but I would like to have agendized review of board policy. We can do this at the historical review and planning commission.
Okay, that sounds good.
But I'll send these out.
Was this the thing
With a statement?
It's
Are those board policies or planning commission policies?
these are Historic Resources Board, but it runs into the planning commission because a lot of this stuff has to do with what the planning commission is going to get in the end, discussing the general plan and stuff. So I can either hand these out to you now, or I can send them out to you. I discuss them out to you.
Okay.
You think we should go with, I can give them out now, or?
Yeah, I think they can get a copy now.
Yeah. We'll have to email one to Mr. Friels. Good. Thank you. Here you go.
Yeah, these were done back in 2015.
2015, okay, so good to know. Oh, I see, it's down here at the bottom.
So I don't know what final action we had on that thing, but it was, we were getting a lot of applications that were incomplete. You couldn't tell where they were, you couldn't tell what was happening, they just figured it was the end of the end. And so we're trying to normalize this thing by saying, hey, let's, board and probably the commission too should be doing this. What do we expect So to me, I show respect to an applicant who comes in with less than the best, saying, fine, I'm going to show you respect, I'm going to move for continuance to the next meeting to allow you to put your package together. And because there's no way that we can make an informed decision without information.
That's right.
And this was intended to come up with information. The reason I brought this up now is because of this letter. Maybe there's other things we should be looking at, and that's what I would want to be discussing when we agendize this.
Okay.
So basically, it amounts to what the commission and the board should be getting in order to make an informed decision. Now, were you here when this was done, David?
I think so.
You think so?
Right now, it's hard to think.
For the other three, you have not seen this thing, but at least you know that somebody in a former
has worked on this, yes.
worked on this thing to say, hey, let's get information so that we can make an informed decision. You know, you want to know who's the applicant.
Yeah.
You want to know exactly what it's going to be. I had my dates mixed up, 406, 404, 410.
Yes.
A sketch of the assessor's parcel map would have shown exactly where this was.
So you need the map.
So a small map, but again, all the stuff that you want to give the scale, that you can use it. We should have policy on that so that we don't, so the staff can say, okay, if you come in with less than this, the commission's going to send you home. They're going to be nice and
Okay.
We won't act, I'm going to say, continue to allow the applicant
To proceed, yeah, to proceed.
Yeah, this can't be a discussion item. You can bring it back on the next agenda.
Yeah, so
Yes.
that's why I'd like to have this one agendized.
Okay, thank you. Why don't you do that?
I call it review of board and commission.
Is there any instruction for staff to prepare for this?
Asking me?
Just put it on the
No,
agenda.
no, I'm just saying,
There's instructions.
in general. I mean, he's getting the information now, but, you know, because we were talking about a process earlier. And plus you have a flow chart too. You know, what do we expect from city council?
Well,
Is that something we need to put in here too?
This is all discussion when we bring it back,
Yeah,
okay?
okay.
And we'll place this in discussion item.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, well, it'll be another discussion item in
And
the
if you
future,
don't have
David.
enough time, actually, you can put it in the next one. But the key thing is to get it agendized so there's discussion to start to say, I mean, it'll make your job easier too. They come in right the first time,
Yeah.
they say, hey, come back. I
Yeah,
don't want to sit there having to argue with people.
Mhm.
Say, the commission said it's incomplete, don't waste their time or your time and your money.
okay, that sounds good. Okay,
I'm good.
Works good.
works very well, thank you very much. We're down at the end of the city planner. You have anything else to
No, ma'am, I
say?
have nothing more.
And the city manager has left us, so I move that we adjourn.
Make a motion, meeting adjourned.
I make a motion that the meeting be adjourned. Somebody going to...
Second it.
I got one more comment.
All right. We'll delay our motion. Yes,
It's in the historic district. See the contrast I was talking about?
yes, because the black pipes and the orange couplings and the...
That's a good example.
Well, we might have to talk to the fire department about what we have to do about that, though.
Yeah, but I mean, the thing is, something we can be looking at.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, thank you. Okay. There's been a motion and a second to adjourn this meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any who say nay? Okay, the ayes have it. The meeting's adjourned.
Is that Trish or something?